All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming today. Today's packaging trend session is brought to you by the Food and Beverage Business Accelerator Program. My name is Emily, and I'm a food scientist with Perennia Food and Agriculture. We are Nova Scotia's only development agency with a focus on agriculture and seafood. We offer services in food safety, agriculture extension, mobile wine bottling, and analytical testing of cannabis, foods, and beverages. Our innovation team works with clients on product development, process improvement, nutritional labeling, and shelf life evaluation. Today's information is from Mintel, which is the world's leading market intelligence agency. They are the experts in what consumers want and why. Our guest presenter is David Luttenberger, and he is Mintel's Global Packaging Director, where he has primary responsibility for retailer, CPG, package converter insights, package innovation, e-commerce, and sustainability activities in North, Latin, and South America and the Asia Pacific regions. We will have time for questions today, so please use that Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and I'll be moderating them for David at the end of the presentation. And with that, I will pass it off to you, David.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And do I have to share my screen now?
Yep, there you go.
Okay, there we go. All right. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you all this morning. I am David Luttenberger, Global Packaging Director at Mintel. Just a very quick background. I've been in the business of packaging about 30 years, printing, converting, research, package innovation. A large portion of what I do is around sustainability. But I also work across food, drink, beauty, personal care, household products, all package formats, and all package materials as well. So what I'm going to share today are two different presentations. The first one is very short, but it's really an introduction to how I look at package innovation and how it's a little bit different from what the packaging industry, food and drink manufacturers, their approach to package innovation. For the past 10, 15 years or so, brands and package manufacturers have always said we have to be disruptive. We have to put something on the shelf that looks so different than anything else that's there that the consumer can't help but notice. And my contention with that is, well, if I'm used to, product A, and now you're giving me product Z, maybe I don't know what the difference is if it's not so intuitive that I can easily see it. And usually that's not the case. So if you're going to put something that's so different in front of someone, they have to understand not only what the difference is and why it's different, but most importantly, what that difference means to them. It has to resonate with them on some type of an emotional level. It's particularly important today as we're so involved with safety, with hygiene, with sustainability, but also with that purchasing mindset, making sure that what you put in front of them represents a good value proposition, one that fits within their personal or family lifestyle. So I'm going to take you through a few examples this morning of where we see the difference between what I call solutions-based package innovation versus just pure disruptive innovation. And if I can get Zoom to cooperate here, in advance, there we go. So typically this is sort of the process that brands and package manufacturers go through. They look at packaging from a very analytical, very engineering centric perspective. We look at these schematics, and oftentimes even when we are introducing a new package, it's because the package works for us as the brand owner because, well, it cubes well. We don't have to buy new filling equipment. The master packs works well. It fits, on the shelf, and it fits within our infrastructure.
David,
yes,
sorry to cut you off there. We're not seeing your you're not seeing your PowerPoint just yet.
Okay. Let's see why not. Okay, I'm going to try to start again here. Let's see.
There we go. Yeah, we can see it.
We good now?
Yep. If you want to move to the there we go. Perfect. You're good.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I apologize for that.
No
Thanks
problem.
for interrupting there. So I'll kind of recap here very quickly. So this is the way that we see a lot of package manufacturers and brands look at their packaging. Very, schematically, engineering wise, and we say it works for them because of all the reasons I just mentioned. It fits within their system, within their filling capacity, it cubes well, it fits on shelf. But consumers look at those same packages very differently. I like to say they take those sharp edges off of it. So when we look at the difference between solutions and disruptive packaging based innovation, I like to say when you begin your new product ideation sessions, work in harmony with packaging and think about how does our product and package work in harmony to make a consumer's life? Why are you introducing this product? What's the benefit? So make your package and your product work together to make the consumer's life easier, faster, safer, maybe make it a greater value proposition, sometimes even make it just more fun for them. Always think about, yes, we have, certain parameters we have to work with within our manufacturing process, but how can we make it more beneficial? How can we make it not just different for the consumer, but how can we really address consumer need states? So the real difference between disruptions and solutions, both have to command point of purchase presence. You're never going to want to put a product in a package on the shelf that doesn't, attract consumers' attention. The difference with a solutions-based package innovation is that it really makes an emotional connection. And we're going to walk through practical, rational, my favorite, which is the irrational emotional connection, the physical or the responsible, to make those consumers feel like they're getting a better value proposition. There is some fun, that the element of safety, hygiene, freshness, shelf life is there. So the first of those emotional connections is what I like to call the practical connection. You can see on the left side of the screen there, the Frito-Lay Sun Chips bag. You probably remember a few years ago, gosh, maybe a decade ago now, when Frito-Lay came out, PepsiCo came out with the Sun Chips in a 100% compostable bag. At that time, it was absolutely a pioneering effort in sustainable packaging. The challenge was no one had access to any type of compostability, and the consumers were not out there asking for a compostable, flexible bag. What they were really asking for was, give us a chip bag that we can reseal so we don't have to use a hairpin or a rubber band or some type of chip clip to help our chips stay fresh. So that practical emotional connection here is about convenience, it's about functionality, but it also has to be about some intuitive feature that the consumer can look at and automatically understand what that benefit is. In the case of Smith's chips, that intuitive practical connection was a zipper on the bag. I now intuitively understand that the solution for me is I can keep my chips fresh. I'm not going to be wasting them. I'm not going to be throwing them out. If I throw food away, I'm also wasting my purchasing dollars. So that intuitive solution was to put a zipper on it. The next emotional connection is one of rationality. And today, this is really important as consumers are trying to stretch their purchasing dollar in a more challenging economic period. There's nothing wrong with this Nestle Corn Flakes package on the left side. It does a really nice job of communicating value through a 1 kilogram package. So it's good. But what we're looking for today is consumers are looking for multiple benefits to rationalize that purchasing decision and to extend their purchasing dollar. And in this case, this muesli cereal bag from South Africa, it talks about the nutritional benefits. So now I can rationalize the nutritional content. I'm doing well. Consumers right now are very much into foods and drinks that promote health and well-being. So this one gives you that nutritional well-being, but it also gives me an on-pack cue that says it keeps me fuller for longer. If I stay fuller longer, that means I'm not going to be eating as often or as much, again, stretching my purchasing dollar. So there's both a nutritional solution as well as a price value equation here with this rational emotional connection. The next of those is my favorite, which is the irrational emotional connection. This is purely based on want, need, desire, fun, indulgence, reward, those sorts of things. I don't need that bag of potato chips. The picture on the right is a picture of me in Mexico City walking down the aisle at a grocery store one day, and I found these chips and it had this really fun graphic on it. I normally wouldn't have picked those chips up. You can see the package on the left is probably gravure printing, very high quality, good looking package, but I don't need it. The one on the right, I don't need that one either, but I wanted it. It compelled me to pick it up. I took a picture, posted it online. It was just that irrational emotional connection that really spurred my purchase decision. Now, with irrational emotional connections in packaging, it may not spur purchase decision for that specific package again, but it's definitely going to spur repeat purchase consideration because I remember the brand, that brand recall. Brand recall builds brand equity. Brand equity builds repeat purchase consideration. So irrational emotionally connected packaging solutions are good for trials. They're good for introducing new products, new flavors, limited time offers, seasonal type of events, but certainly they absolutely spur repeat purchase consideration. The next of those emotional connections is physical. And we really learned during the pandemic that packaging does have a role to play. Typically, consumers always thought of packaging as wasteful. Why are we using all this packaging? What good is it? But during the pandemic, consumers began to see certain elements of packaging as promoting safety and hygiene. And they began to have that emotional connection to it is, well, you know what? Maybe there is some value to packaging. In the post-pandemic era, we can continue to promote that safety and hygiene element of packaging. We've always had antimicrobial and antibacterial coatings for packaging, but we didn't overtly market them. Today, when we see Microban or TouchGuard or these other antimicrobial coatings, that's a sign to the consumer of safety, of hygiene. They appreciate that. Those types of coatings have become a marketable attribute. The package on the left with Coca-Cola has both a physical and an environmental solution to it. Visually, it represents that paperboard carrier in place of a high cone plastic ring carrier, represents that visual physical connection where now I understand that perhaps not as many people have been able to touch the top of that can that I'm now going to put to my lips, but they also see it as an environmental solution, one that's eliminating those plastic ring carriers and that image of the turtle with its head stuck through the ring carrier. So it's got both a safety and hygiene, physical, emotional connection, but it's also got an environmental connection to it as well. And then we go directly to that environmental connection. You will probably hear me say today that I am no longer a fan of sustainability or sustainable packaging. I like to refer to it as responsibility and responsible packaging because the idea of responsibility is much more intuitive. It's much more what I call hyper actionable, meaning that I can take action for myself. I know what based on the inputs that you have provided to me, I can take action to lower my footprint, to be more environmentally responsible. And we're really seeing this environmental responsibility manifest itself with on-pack communication. Um, the image at the top, Coca-Cola, they've been experimenting with recycled content, but now they're putting on the front of the bottle 100% recyclable. They're really making an effort to create actions for consumers, to make consumers more aware that this package maybe is just not made from recycled content, but it's actually recyclable. And that's really important. The image at the bottom is from Amazon. We've all during the pandemic have had a garage full of corrugated Amazon boxes, but now Amazon is actually replacing a lot of the corrugated shippers with plastic shippers. And of course, consumers say, well, plastic is bad. We have to get rid of plastic. Why is Amazon using plastic bags? They knew that was important. They knew that there was a visceral emotional connection between the inherent recyclability of corrugated and the distrust or mislike of plastic. So they actually put this graphic on the package that said, this package is lighter than our corrugated mailer. If you want to learn more, click this QR code and we can tell you the environmental benefits in this region, in this case, in this one specific instance of why we are using plastic instead of corrugated. So they're really working hard to communicate to consumers the benefit of this particular plastic package. And with the environmental or hyper actionable packaging solution, it's really important not just to do the right thing, but to help consumers understand why you still may be using plastic in this occasion, or what the percentage of plastic reduction is, or why you're using glass versus aluminum or aluminum versus paperboard. That on-pack communication is so important right now to helping consumers understand what the benefit of the solution is, particularly in a case where you might be using plastic and they might say, why are you using more plastic instead of eliminating it? So the bottom line here is think about, just don't try to be different for different sake. Be different for the sake of making or creating a solution for consumers, whether it's in the shopping occasion, the use occasion, the end of life alternative scenarios. Help consumers understand why it's different and what that difference means to them. When you look at the different emotional connections here, particularly with food and drink, think about freshness, safety, efficacy, those sorts of attributes, and really work hard to communicate to consumers what the emotional connection is and what that benefit is to them. And of course, look to some of the things that we learned during the pandemic. I like to say that as terrible as the pandemic was, there were some COVID silver linings for packaging. It really brought packaging into the consciousness of consumers, where they said, hey, you know what, maybe all packaging isn't wasteful, that there are some valuable benefits to packaging. So look to the lessons we learned about safety, about hygiene, about freshness, and think about how you can create not just different packaging, but packaging solutions moving forward. Before we move into the trends portion, are there any questions that we might want to address at this point?
We do have one question.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
The question is, if I have a product, do you help with the choosing of appropriate packaging and design?
From Mintel, we can absolutely help you. We do a lot of correspondence analysis where we look at in food, in beverages, what associations consumers have with certain pack formats and pack materials. I personally do quite a few package design audits where I can look at your current portfolio of packaging, whether it's by material, design, format, and help you create solutions that may not just be a little bit less bad, but actually be better for the environment, better in terms of messaging, a more optimized use of packaging rather than just looking at what packaging we can eliminate. Does that help? Good to
Yeah,
go.
I think so. Yeah, and that's
Okay.
it for now.
Okay. All right. So now I'm going to, excuse me, move on to our packaging trends. This, for time's sake, is an abbreviated version of our trends today, but you will get a copy of the full trends. We're happy to answer questions for you if you want to, send through with some emails. But we'll try to get through these relatively quickly. Typically, when you think about packaging trends, you think about, well, show me the new technology, show me new materials. And honestly, so much of what the Mintel packaging team has done, excuse me, I've been presenting quite a bit the past couple of days. So much of what we have done in the past 3 or 4 years, probably 95% has been around sustainability, environmental responsibility, looking at packaging material alternatives. I think you probably know everything there is to know about the incorporation of post-consumer recycled content into packaging. We're seeing that switch from multi-laminate materials into mono-layer materials that have a better environmental profile. So rather than talk so much about those driving forces in package innovation, we decided to look at things in packaging that are really outside of your control and look at packaging from this PESTEL perspective. And when we talk about, I can't get There we go. When we talk about this today, what we're really talking about are the political, economic, social, technological, environmental, and legal things that are happening around the world that, unlike the things you look at in a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, a SWOT analysis looks at things that you can control. A PESTEL analysis looks at those things that are outside of your control. So we thought it'd be a little bit different this year to kind of not so much give you the trends, but give you a checklist of things to think about. So when R&D and brand management and purchasing and HR, when you all come together for your new product and package development ideation sessions, you can kind of look at the things that consumers are faced with, that we're faced with around the world today. And you can think about, well, from an environmental perspective, have we thought about this? And economically, perhaps, is it a value proposition, but where does the environmental piece fit into it? And as we're addressing the environmental piece, have we thought about it from a legal perspective? So really what we're seeing is a lot of crossover, a lot of cross fertilization of these pestle factors. And when it comes to packaging trends this year, so much of what we see from a trend perspective is going to be about communication with consumers, about how you talk to consumers, how you educate, enlighten, and inform them about how you are addressing certain things such as packaging legislation, environmentalism, even such things as social issues that are happening around the world today. So from political perspective, we've seen so much in politics lately, whether it's from the pandemic, whether it's from who's in a leadership position, that it's dividing the consumer landscape. We can see here from the Mintel G35 data set, that about 4 out of every 10 consumers say they've lost friends due to conflicting political beliefs. And those political beliefs could be about leadership in government, they could be about environmental issues, or they could be about such things as diversity and inclusion. So we have to begin to think about, as we roll out new products and new packaging, what have we done to educate consumers about where we stand on an issue? Have we taken a stand on an issue? Why we are taking a stand on this issue? And how does it manifest itself in the products and the packaging, and particularly the way we're communicating with consumers about what we are doing? And that's where we begin to see this this blurring of lines between political, legal, and even environmental. We have to think about things such as plastic bans and extended producer responsibility. Yes, those have environmental implications, but oftentimes we know that legislation around packaging is based on myths or misperceptions, or even legislators bowing to the misinformation that consumers are pressuring them to act on. So as we move forward, we have to think about bans on plastic and extended producer responsibility, and even the new laws around the forever chemicals. We have to work harder to make sure that the things that we do from a political standpoint, from a legislative standpoint, are based in science, and we have to communicate with consumers about why we are doing this. And one of the ways that we are seeing this is that we know that many more consumers believe that brands should be required to use labeling that shows the environmental impact. But also that environmental impact has legal implications about such things as the amount of CO2 created, or the amount of CO2 that we are offsetting. And we can talk about how even carbon offsetting has become a political hot button, because consumers are learning that offsetting is maybe, just a little bit less bad, that we're kind of buying our way out of it. If we're buying carbon credits, which is a legal thing to do, the environmental implication is we are still allowed to produce the same amount of carbon, or release the same amount of carbon into the atmosphere as we did. We're just buying our way out of it in another region of the country. So this is where it kind of gets sticky with packaging: is it political? Is it environmental? Is it legal? Some of the key things that we're seeing, excuse me, of course, the extended producer responsibility, which 10 years ago, I would have bet my paycheck would have never happened, particularly in the United States, because brands would not be willing to step up to the plate to fund this. Now it's become legally mandated in a number of states. We're seeing that EPR rules in the UK are going to come into force next year, and they're going to be enforced, unlike a lot of environmental legislation, which is there but not really enforced. The forever chemical issue is both a human welfare as well as an environmental issue as well. We have now begun to understand that these forever chemicals are being used as lubricants in such thing as bathroom tissue production. So we have to ask ourselves, do we also use these lubricants perhaps in other packaging or filling or converting machinery? And what is that going to mean to legal requirements to change that? Deposit systems, of course, in Canada and the UK, and particularly in Europe, have been around. I don't see them happening as much in the US just because it's not convenient for US consumers. It's not just part of our daily lifestyle, but we are going to be seeing a lot more deposit systems pop up around the world. And then from a food manufacturing, food production, food formulation, the reduction of high salt, sugar, and fatty foods, and how we communicate on pack to consumers about what product may be unhealthy and to what extent that we try to still continue to sell these types of products, but how we temper our messaging to consumers about what is healthy for them. So I think the end of the,
David,
yes, ma'am.
sorry, just a quick pause on that last slide. There's a
Yeah,
question that's
sure.
very specific to it. So someone just quickly asked if EPR stood for Environmental Protection Regulation or something else.
You know what, I'm going to have to build that in. I took for granted that everyone understood that. EPR is Extended Producer Responsibility, where the brand would be responsible for all the packaging that it puts into the marketplace, taking it back and making sure that it is either recycled or disposed of in an environmentally responsible way. That's a very good point. I will make sure that that is spelled out. I'll change that in the deck here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. So again, you need to be prepared for more and more restrictive legislation around all these issues. Consumers are becoming more active. Unfortunately, they are asking you to do more, but they will not necessarily reward you for doing more or for doing the right thing. They just take it as the right thing to do. And we'll talk in a moment about ethical responsibility and how consumers are holding brands and package manufacturers even more responsible for ethical behavior. I think this stat on the right here, about a quarter of consumers say issues related to the environment are hard to understand. And a lot of times that's because we as an industry put claims on packaging like we are now carbon neutral, but a package and a product right next to it on the shelf says we are carbon positive. And another one may say we are carbon responsible or carbon balanced or carbon free or carbon offset. So we're putting these claims out there, but we're not taking that next step to help consumers understand exactly what we mean when we say carbon neutral or carbon balanced or carbon positive or carbon negative. We're leaving it to the consumer to interpret that. And oftentimes that interpretation is misled, misguided, misinformed. So we have to do a much better job of helping consumers, the environmental implications as well as the political implications. And that leads into the economic implications. Coming out of the pandemic, I really believed that as the consumers began to understand that package really does play a valuable role in health and hygiene, in freshness, in shelf life, that we were going to have a window of opportunity to talk about the environmental attributes of packaging. However, as the economy began to, I hate to use the word tank or go south, but certainly the economics that consumers have to deal with today has again supplanted the environmental element. And now it's all about the value proposition. We see that about 7 out of every 10 consumers, particularly in the US, say I have a budget that I have to stick to. Therefore, the economic implications for packaging are that we need to help consumers understand the role that packaging plays lies in the value proposition. I've talked about this one on the left here about the value of health and wellness of the product, but also about the packaging and the on-pack communication. The one in the middle here is interesting, as I again spoke about before about safety and hygiene. This particular package now incorporates copper microparticles that ionize to help inhibit the development of microorganisms, really important in such products as processed meats, as fresh produce, and helping consumers understand that you as a brand, that you as a package manufacturer are creating solutions that help inhibit the propensity for a brand or a food recall based on this. And again, when you can help the consumer intuitively understand that you are working on their behalf to extend shelf life, to prevent foodborne illnesses, you are also helping them extend their purchasing dollars. And a lot of times it comes down to package size, helping them understand the value proposition and equating that value proposition in terms of a larger size, a smaller size, and what it means on a price per ounce, price per milligram, price per gram. Anything that you can do in that area to help consumers. And this is where we get into what I like to call show and tell graphics. You can see on the image of the right, they've told me about that 20% savings, but they've also given me a nice graphic so I can visually look at it. And that's where sort of that rational and practical emotional connection comes into play, where I can see it, I intuitively understand it, and it absolutely motivates and drives that purchasing decision from an economic standpoint, because I can visually get a representation of what it means to me. We see more consumers are planning planned meals at home to avoid food waste. This directly correlates to, guiding consumers toward value proposition. Whether, again, it's a smaller pack size, a bulk size, a family size, help me understand that you're offering a wider variety of pack formats, price points, pack sizes, so I can make the determination of which one has the best overall economic value for myself. From a social perspective here, I believe, and the Mintel packaging team believes, that the social aspect is going to have one of the biggest impacts on brands, on package manufacturers, as we see that fewer consumers trust brands, to do what they're saying they're actually doing. We're seeing that about 3/4 of consumers are wanting to learn more, not just about the products they buy, but who is the brand behind the product? Do you behave in a socially and environmentally responsible way? Are you an ethical brand? Do you look at things such as diversity, inclusion, the elimination of poverty and hunger? Do you take consideration for proper land and water use? Do you promote women the same as you would men? Do you pay fair and equitable wage, not only in your organization, but to your suppliers as well, especially in those in underserved or underdeveloped areas of the world? So this fits right into Mintel's trends about well-being and rights. And consumers, as I said, they're not going to necessarily reward you for behaving ethically, but they will absolutely penalize you for not doing so. So the idea of being more transparent about all the things that you do and how you communicate that on pack is becoming more and more important. We're seeing some examples here of looking at, desalinated water and how brands are communicating to consumers about the water they use and about being more responsible with the water they use. It's important for you as a brand to communicate on pack that you are support diversity and inclusion, not just in the month in which it's celebrated, but all the time. Sort of that false narrative around, we support Black Lives Matters, or we support diversity and inclusion only during Gay Pride Month or only during Black History Month. Consumers are going to see through that very quickly. We can also see that, just probably a month ago, when Mars decided that it was going to sort of change the ethos of itself and the way it looks at even its mascots, the way that its brand has been represented, and they were going to take the high heels off of the green M&M and shorten her legs. And while that made her look less feminine, many people said, well, before she was too sexy and too feminine, and now she's not feminine enough. Or calling out the red M&M for being a plus size stereotype. So we have to be very cognizant. And that's where, again, where packaging and branding and marketing and social responsibility all come into play. And we have to look at all these elements as we begin to look at package manufacturing, the use of products, the support of groups that have been underserved in the past, or how we, communicate on pack, all of these things. One of the most positive things I see on the social front is the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. I have seen responsibility somewhat supplant sustainability. We moved into the environmental, social, and governance era, which was very generic. But now, as we move into the Sustainable Development Goals by the United Nations, we've got 17 different areas upon which you can base your claims. You can show your support for these underserved and underdeveloped regions, where you can be more environmentally responsible around land use, water use, packaging resources, production. One of the things I was very encouraged about was in October, for the first time in a couple years following COVID, I was able to travel again to Japan. And at the Tokyo Pack Show, I began to see both men and women sporting the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals lapel pin in place of their own organizational pin or brand pin or even a country pin. And that really began to show the support and the harmonization around the world for goals that were quantifiable, measurable, and reportable on global standards, rather than just saying, well, we are more sustainable than this. So it really begins to bring into focus these harmonized standards by the UN, and seeing how package manufacturers and brands are already beginning to use these icons on their websites. I've even begun to see them on some certain packaging, as brands have begun to call out these goals and saying, this is what we're doing within the UN SDGs to support diversity or support responsible manufacturing. So again, we have to be much more transparent, not only about the commitments we have made to do something in the future, but what we are doing now, because we know that about half of consumers are saying, I will boycott your company if you're doing something I believe to be unethical. And that includes package production, food formulation, on-pack communication. So it's becoming even more and more important to be transparent, not just to take a stand, to be proactive in your stand, and to communicate with consumers either on pack or even through social media about the things that you are doing. From a technological standpoint, we've begun to see again something coming out of COVID was the use of QR codes. We've been using QR codes for 10 years, but not always in a way that was really beneficial to consumers. We've begun to see a transition of all digital technologies from what we call fun to functional, where many applications for QR, for NFC, for RFID, for Bluetooth Low Energy, were about entertainment. Show me a recipe, give me a little, song and dance about your product. But now, as we know, consumers, particularly food and drink and health and wellness brands, have to be more transparent about what's the nutritional information. How do I access information to allergens? We're going back to the very basics of QR codes and NFC, but now we are helping consumers understand that we want to help you understand in a functional way how to access this information that's going to give you access, that's going to make your life again easier, faster, better, safer, more hygienic. Give me access to information by connecting packaging to our smart homes, to our digital devices, to help me make purchasing decisions in this moment in time that are more responsible for my family. I highly encourage those package manufacturers, brands, and retailers to embrace social media, to employ social media influencers. In the past, particularly with packaging, we know that package manufacturers have always been at the mercy of brands to promote the value and the value propositions of packaging, and on-pack billboard space was always at a premium. So, the attributes of packaging weren't always talked about. But we know more consumers are viewing social media, more consumers are being influenced by social media. And when it comes to packaging, I was pleasantly surprised the other day to see the Glass Packaging Institute talk about packaging not in the context of recyclability or purity or premiumization, but they kind of gave me an image of, if I use cosmetics in glass packaging, this could be me. And I thought that really resonated, in our socially conscious, digital enhanced environment today, that they presented packaging to me by going around the brand, by communicating directly to the consumer of a sort of an intangible benefit of glass, but they did it in that in a format of social media where we're all looking at things, we're all looking for memes that make us feel better. And I just really thought this one resonated on a different level with packaging and the influence of social media. So again, when it comes to digital technologies, it's interesting that 41% of consumers say they want to be the first to use technology, but we're in a technology overload era, and only 13% of consumers say, yeah, I want to disconnect. So we know consumers want information, but they want it in a way that offers those solutions. Help me be more responsible. Help me gain access to information right now at the point of sale or at the point of use that's going to make me aware of allergens or potential pathogens, or how this product is going to help me feel fuller for longer, or just give me a sense of health and wellness. I am not going to go through the environmental, technological part of this because we know so much about it. And I thought all these other areas were more important, but you will get access to the environmental PESTEL analysis when you get a copy of this. So just very quickly here as we wrap up, what does this all mean for food and drink? We know that consumers today are looking for products, for brands that help them live a fuller, healthier, more conscious lifestyle. But also in this tough economic period, consumers are not going to be motivated solely by low prices. They're seeking value, particularly in food and drinks that promise clarity of mind, clarity of body, greater nutrition, and allow me the versatility. Do I want it fresh? Do I want it frozen? Do I want it chilled? Do I want it in a bulk pack? Do I want it in a single serve pack? Do I want it on the go? Or do I want it maybe in a connected packaging technology that allows me to prepare the food in the oven, in the microwave, in the Instapot? Those are all the things that we have to begin to think about. But as we look again at on-pack communication, we are seeing sort of a return to what I call the design principle of essentialism. Essentialism fits between minimalism and what we previously saw as clean label, because we saw what we called clean label creep, where we began to look at labels and we said, well, we have to add one more marketing message. We have to add nutritional. We have to add something about calorie. We have to add something about protein. We have to add something about, the percentage of fat that we have taken out. And that clean label very quickly became chaotic. So we're seeing a return to this design principle of essentialism, where we're using maybe 2 or 3 key elements about the product, about an ingredient, about the nutritional benefit, but then also, an element about the package. It's resealable. It helps the product stay fresher for longer. It's 100% recyclable. So think about how you can pare down your message to just give the consumers those 2, 3, at the most, maybe 4 essential elements that motivate and drive that purchase decision. Again, we're looking at design elements, as I talked about, that help consumers understand it's ready to cook. I can put it in the oven. It's ready in 3 minutes. I can throw it in the Instapot. I can go to work. Give the consumers more options to look at in terms of food preparation. Again, in the context of a solution that's going to make their life easier, faster, more convenient, healthier, more sated. So again, you've heard me say it 100 times today, on-pack communication. Embrace the essentialism design principle, but also work to help consumers intuitively understand how your product and package are going to work in harmony to make their life a little easier, to extend their purchasing dollars, make them feel safe, make them feel like you are behaving in an ethical and environmentally responsible way. So again, it's about acting with purpose, use resources wisely, give us those succinct solutions, messages. When we think about sustainability, it's more about just recycling and reducing packaging. It's about creating packaging and using packaging that is optimized and helping consumers understand what optimization means rather than elimination. So with that, I'm going to stop right there. And I am happy to take as many questions as we have time for.
Thank you so much, David. That
Thanks.
was a very good
It's a
presentation.
lot of information, a little bit of time.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of it though, especially the end there with you were calling it essentialism. I've definitely talked to clients all the time about being more minimalist in their packaging. It did get so cluttered for a while. And as much as people are looking for more like consistency between like different companies, different brands as well. And like you said, that carbon neutral versus carbon positive example, it gets really confusing when
It does.
people like these claims aren't regulated, but other claims like nutritional claims and those are regulated by the governments in Canada and US. So it's also just using the ones you can appropriately as well.
And it even goes to packaging. I mean, we're seeing so much being done in flexible packaging right now with the incorporation of recycled content. And we're seeing a lot of on-pack claims and flexibles that's saying this pack is recyclable, whether we're using a higher percentage of recycled content or whether it's a mono material versus a multi-laminate. And we're being somewhat disingenuous to consumers by saying this pack is recyclable. Well, yes, it's technically recyclable if we had curbside recycling, if we had the means to recycle flexible packaging. So we have to take that next step to explain to consumers what we mean. Consumers don't even understand, and we've got data in our sustainability barometer that I think I could give you the Canadian, we have the Canada data points, but most consumers were not aware that just because a package included recycled content did not mean it's necessarily recyclable.
Right.
Consumers don't probably know that there's a difference between home and industrial compostable. So when they see on-pack communication that says this package is compostable, 99% of the time it means industrial compostable. No one, and I know in the US there's like 5 industrial compost facilities that accept food grade industrial packaging. So we really are being unethical, disingenuous. We're not offering them solutions. It's so important. If you put that claim out there, just give me a little something, even if it's a digital or connected opportunity. Give me a URL, give me a QR code. So on my time and my terms, I can go in and understand what this really means and what that hyper actionability is. What can I do about it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we do have some time for questions now.
Sure. Yeah.
There's quite a few already here, so
Good.
we'll get right into it. But one's here kind of a bit on what we were just talking about, that it's hard to go through the marketplace with all these different types, but then as the producers here, there's plastic bans coming, glass containers are hard to get, those pouches, like you said, they're not always recyclable. Even the paper ones that have a plastic lining might not actually be eco-friendly, even though they look like it. So the question here is, how do we educate organizations like Farmers Market Nova Scotia, so they encompass all farmers markets here in the province, and other farmers markets about responsible packaging and what's actually available to small businesses?
One of the things I always point to when people say, well, what's the most sustainable package, or how do we educate consumers? I say, let's take a step back. There's an organization many of you may be familiar with it, the Sustainable Packaging Coalition. The SPC has a definition of sustainable packaging. There is 8 different criteria within that definition. Look at those criteria and just say, well, which one is important to us? Which one might be important to and actionable at a farmer's market level. You know, is it better to have no packaging and bring your own totes? Well, that might be, but educate the consumer that you have to use that cotton reusable tote 130 times to give it the same environmental profile as one plastic bag. And then at least you're giving them the opportunity to make a decision based on what they feel good about. But for brands and package manufacturers, say, look at those criteria, you are not going to achieve all 8 of them. So which one fits within the ethos of your company? Is it reducing packaging? Is it having more responsible use of water? Is it making sure that your packaging is actually recyclable? Pick one, talk about it, explain to consumers what you are doing and why, and what it means to them. What can they do based on the inputs? It's great if you're using 100% renewable energy to fuel your production plant, but I don't see you reducing the cost of your products to consumers because you're saving on your energy costs. So consumers get it, but they also want to understand that, you know, I've said it 100 times, what's in it for me? Communicate your efforts and help them understand based on the inputs that you are providing what they can do. So if it's at a farmer's market, if it's at a grocery store, if you're wrapping individual cucumbers, tell them why.
Absolutely.
It's not a waste of plastic. You're extending the shelf life of that cucumber by oftentimes by weeks. So yes, you're using plastic, but you're helping them prevent food waste, which helps them eliminate the opportunity for wasting purchasing dollars. Just
Yep.
think about that next step. What does it mean to the next person down the line?
Yeah, I totally agree. Education is all of it. And especially when you're at that farmer's market level, you have an excellent opportunity to educate your consumers firsthand. That's what most people love about going to the farmer's market here is you get to talk to the producer themselves. So as the producer, let them know if you couldn't find that sustainable package, what are you doing that's sustainable otherwise? Like David used all those other examples.
Yeah, like we go to Starbucks and Starbucks says, well, we want to use compostable cups. Oh, that's great. But the minute I walk out the door of the Starbucks, what am I going to do with it? You know,
Exactly,
it's like, so tell me what I can do with this. Yeah.
for sure. The next question here, I think, is back to more of the beginning part of the presentation, but it's, are consumers willing to spend more on products for sustainable or creative packaging? I believe you referenced it more to responsible packaging. So do we know that consumers at the store or at the farmer's market level, would they spend more on that product knowing that?
Somebody's just trying to make me laugh. Like I said, I've been in packaging 30 years. I've been intimately involved with sustainability for 20 years. I have seen hundreds of surveys that say, oh yes, consumers will spend 5 to 10% more for a product that's produced sustainably or packaged sustainably. And I'll be honest, Mintel has the same data, and I refuse to believe it, because we all have an eco-consciousness about us. No one wants to be an eco-villain. We want to believe we will do the right thing, but particularly right now when we're paying in the US $7.99 for a dozen eggs, yeah, I don't care what it comes in. I'm not paying a penny more for eggs. The gap, as you all know, between purchase intent and purchase action is huge. The challenge is consumers expect companies, brands to do more to preserve and protect the environment than the consumers themselves. Consumers expect companies to do more than governments to preserve and protect the environment. Again, I can share information from our sustainability barometer about Canada specifically. There's a small constituency of consumers who will pay a little bit more, and maybe even more so at like a farmer's market. But the expectation is that you are an ethical company, that you are environmentally responsible. The expectation is there. They will penalize you for not doing the right thing by not buying your product, but they will not reward you for doing the right thing.
Yeah,
Um,
for
so,
sure. I think
and
the only thing to reiterate there is the
yeah,
education too, right? Like, so if you are using, spending more money on your packaging, tell people why.
yeah. I mean, in higher profit margin products, you can build in that price point. I always like to point to Absolute Vodka. I mean, it's a globally recognized brand, but they've done some things with packaging that encourage and inform consumers about the recyclability of their packaging. They recently came out with a package that looked like broken shards of glass. And what that was meant to represent was that glass is recyclable. And they put a whole social media campaign behind it because so many consumers have just become, used to the idea that glass is recyclable, that we've begun to see fewer and fewer on-pack claims about the recyclability of glass, just like we've seen fewer and fewer claims about the recyclability of aluminum. Brands have just believed, well, consumers know that, why do we waste that space? So Absolute came out with this campaign about this recycled glass bottle, and they put this whole social media campaign behind it to promote the fact that glass is recyclable, that it's infinitely recyclable, that it can be used on a premium product. So they combine that, the technology, the messaging, the physical, emotional response, the environmental response, but then they also engage social media influencers to talk about it. Really great example of sharing the message and building in that intuitiveness about packaging and environmental responsibility.
That's awesome. I didn't see that one. That's really cool.
Yeah.
The next question here is, are consumers becoming fatigued by using QR codes?
I think again, the pandemic unfortunately revived QR codes. It began to really show consumers, gosh, I can order with a QR code. I can verify, track and trace with a QR code. I can check the allergen levels in this. I've even seen nutritional bars. There's a brand called Zigo, which uses a QR code, not only to give you the parts per billion of allergens that may be present in that energy bar, but the parts per billion of allergens that were present on the packaging line. And that takes it to a whole new level of transparency. So I think consumers, while we kind of dismissed QR codes a few years ago, we've seen a resurgence of them being used for functionality rather than just for entertainment.
I agree. I remember them coming out quite a while ago, and when you would click on it, you would just go to their website or something. You didn't get any more information. But personally, I'm someone with a few food allergies, and now I love them because they almost always do go to that allergen information. I was actually at a restaurant last night, and they had physical menus on the table for food, but then QR code for all the allergy information. And for me, ordering food even at a restaurant level, that's amazing to see. So like you said, just having functionality to it and actually providing more information or more detailed information, people aren't going to complain, I don't think.
Yeah. The key right now is, do not make me download a proprietary app to access the information. I want open platform, make it accessible. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the next person here is obviously listening very well. They have a question about your trip to Japan.
Oh, okay.
And if you saw any interesting examples for packaging innovation in seafood.
In seafood. I've been to Japan many times. Packaging from Japan is so highly over-engineered, it's ridiculous. But packaging in Japan is much like giving a gift to someone. The presentation is as important as the gift itself. But let me, I'm going to take a note. I have seen some interesting seafood packaging recently, but I'm going to have to go back through a few things. If you could send me a note or an email after this with that person's contact information, I will get them a couple of examples of some cool seafood packaging, perhaps not from Japan, but from other things I've seen around the world.
Sure, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, happy to do that.
Let me just look at these last couple here. We have 2 minutes, so
sure.
I think so. The one here is they're particularly in the meal kit business, and that comes with a lot of waste, and that there's new, obviously, federal regulations on those single-use plastics. So I guess if you have any knowledge on the meal kits specifically, like HelloFresh and those, are those types of plastics recyclable, or does that end up all being waste?
Again, it just depends on whether your municipality accepts a certain type of material. I know here in where I live, they won't even take a pizza box. I had 2 pizza boxes the other day. I opened them up. There was maybe 5% grease and not even saturated, but they just won't even take it. So it really does come down to, you could use the how to recycle logo, where you can actually type in your zip code, here, at least here in the US, and it will tell you if your municipality collects polypropylene, PE, what types of corrugated, what types of like plastic lined carton board, those sorts of things. So I encourage more mono-material meal kits if possible, but when not, give me that alternative, use that opportunity for on-pack. I like to call it enlightenment. Nobody likes to be educated. It makes me feel like I'm being scolded or something. So just inform me or enlighten me a little bit, but just tell
Yes.
me that how to recycle label, I believe is going to do more for proper recycling than the de facto resin ID code has done the past 30 years, because it tells me take the bag out of the box, throw the bag away, recycle the box, leave the label on the plastic bottle, take the label off, leave the cap
Yeah.
on, take the cap off. So, that's a great tool, that how to recycle label, for telling consumers. It's a show and tell graphic. Tells
Yeah.
me what to do, tells me how to separate it, but it also allows that hyper actionability for me to plug in digitally, can I actually recycle this in my town?
Yep. We have something similar here in the province. There's actually an app that you can use, so that people can get more information through there as well. But we're hitting noon. I don't want to hold
Sure.
people over too much over. So the people that were looking for the seafood specific information, there'll be an email from me after this webinar, including the PowerPoint, as David mentioned, and also we recorded it, so a link to the recording so you can see it after as well. So for those seafood people that were interested in that, just respond to that email so I know who you are, and we will get that extra information to you. But unfortunately, we're out of time, so we're going to have to close this up. But thank you so much, David. I found that presentation super insightful. How many questions we got obviously showed there's lots and lots of interest in this. So Mintel, their information will also be provided, a link to their website afterwards. And of course, we'll let everybody go and enjoy the rest of their day.
Thanks. Next time, let's do it in person in the Great White
North. I know. All right.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Appreciate the opportunity. Thanks.
Bye.